Welcome to Audit the Audit, where we sort out the who and what and the right and wrong of police interactions. This episode covers drones, defending private property, and search warrants, and comes to us from Thompson Soccer 12's channel. Be sure to check out the description below and give them the credit that they deserve. Let's dive right in and audit the interaction. In the early morning hours of January 2nd, 2017, officers of the Hall County Sheriff's Office in northern Georgia were responding to a domestic dispute near the home of Mr. Rakim, whose last name was redacted from the original video. The officers noticed a drone flying near their investigation and began searching for the owner when they located Mr. Rakim standing on his front porch wearing a bulletproof vest with an AR-15 rifle strapped around his shoulder. The approaching deputy ordered Mr. Rakim to land his drone and come to the edge of his property to speak with him.
All right, sir. What is your legal name?
Rakim, R-A-K-E-E-M. All right, right now I got two Hall County Sheriff deputies out here.
What is your last name, sir?
They're detaining me in my yard. This guy has his taser. 8. This guy has his taser out.
I'm sorry, what was your birthday?
8.
Oh, no.
This guy has his taser out. I told him to put it away. Told him to leave off my property as well.
Why are you flying a drone at 1 o'clock in the morning over our investigation with an AR strapped to your chest and ballistic panels on?
I'm not flying over your investigation. I'm flying over my yard.
You were, sir.
I'm flying over my yard.
You were.
No.
In the original video, Mr. Rakim shows a map of the drone's flight path, as well as the full recording from both the drone and his home security camera. According to Mr. Rakim, the drone never left his property, and it would appear as though that is true. In the 1946 Supreme Court case of United States versus Cosby, the court held that landowners have exclusive control of the immediate reaches of the enveloping atmosphere, and that the landowner owns at least as much of the space above the ground as they can occupy or use in connection with the land. The Cosby case had a lasting effect on the legalities surrounding drones, and many modern cases have referred to the doctrine of the Cosby case in recent years. On July 15, 2016, the FAA's Extension, Safety, and Security Act went into effect, following the June 2016 enactment of Part 107 concerning commercial drone operations. Part 107 established strict guidelines on the use of drones under 55 pounds, including prohibiting flying drones at night. However, while the FAA has sovereign regulatory authority over all airspace in the U.S., the Cosby case dictates that low-altitude access over private property still requires consent of the property owner. The FAA Air Traffic Control has stated that it has no authority or responsibility to control air traffic in Class G airspace, which includes all airspace below 14,500 feet not otherwise classified as controlled. It is clear from the drone footage that Mr. Rakim never left Class G airspace or his private property throughout the entire flight.
Like I said, I got the AR on me because earlier I saw somebody out here with a flashlight, going around my yard. So I came out with the AR. Of course, I got my bulletproof on since I don't know who or what was out here. Then my neighbor came out here and said they had sheriff deputies out there at the end of the street, so stood out here flying the drone above my yard, seeing if I could see around the back as well as front at the same time. And now I'm being questioned by 2 different Hall County sheriff deputies. So, am I being detained or am I free to go?
You're being detained right now.
All right. So, what do you
Until we
need?
finish our investigation.
What is your investigation of?
Why you're flying a drone above our area that we're
I
operating
got
at.
video, so I'm not worried about it. I'm flying above my yard. I got cameras right here on every corner.
Where's your FAA number on there?
It's on the controller as well as on the bottom.
Where is it on the...
Can I pick up the drone?
Yeah. Can you show that to me, please?
Right there.
In 2012, Congress passed the FAA Modernization and Reform Act, which directed the FAA to develop a comprehensive plan to safely accelerate the integration of small drones into the national airspace system. This led to the development of the Extension, Safety, and Security Act we discussed earlier in the episode. At the time of this interaction, in 2017, the Modernization and Reform Act included a special section for hobbyist drone pilots known as Section 336. Section 336 allowed operators to enter the airspace without an FAA pilot's license, equipment mandates, and regulatory paperwork. Mr. Hakeem was not required to have a pilot's license to fly his drone, nor was he required by the FAA to have his drone registered. There are no Georgia state laws which require drones to be registered. Section 336 was repealed in 2018 and replaced by Section 349, which now requires recreational drones to be registered.
You came to my property. I have a right to defend my property.
No?
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't use deadly force against to defend private property.
Do what now?
You don't use deadly force to defend property.
Yeah.
You use deadly force
If you come into my property,
someone else's life.
Yeah, that's my life.
Okay. You don't use it to defend just property.
That's my life. So if you coming on my property, I'm coming to see what you want.
Throughout the majority of the United States, it is illegal to use deadly force to defend private property, and citizens are encouraged to retreat from danger whenever possible and only use deadly force when absolutely necessary. However, some states, like Georgia, have created what are known as stand your ground laws, which more loosely regulate the use of deadly force. Stand your ground laws are derived from the Old English common law concept that individuals have a right to defend their homes. The Castle Doctrine gave individuals a right to protect their home against intruders, even if that meant using deadly force. Because they were protecting their home, courts carved out an exception to the retreat rule, and stand your ground laws expand the no duty to retreat concept. Georgia Code Section 16321 allows use of force when you reasonably believe that the force is necessary in order to protect yourself or a third party against another person's imminent use of unlawful force. The scope of that force depends on whether you reasonably believe that the type of force is necessary to defend yourself or a third party, and you may only use deadly force if you believe it is necessary to prevent death or harm to you or to another, or to prevent the commission of a forcible felony. Unlike the laws in some states, which only allow this behavior in restricted areas, such as your home or your car, Georgia's law makes no distinction regarding locations. If Mr. Hakeem had opened his front door and discovered an armed intruder, the use of deadly force may have been justified under Georgia state law.
Okay. Just like you come over us with that drone.
That's incorrect. That's incorrect. I got video. Like I said, you see he has the camera on.
And if we need to, we can take it and
I got telemetry data as well, so
we can file a search warrant for your phone and your drone.
I mean, you can do that. That don't mean I have to give it up, you know.
Yeah, it does.
No, it don't.
Search warrant, it does.
No, it don't. It means if I see it's available, then I might be able to give it up. But like I said, I got video evidence that I'm not over there.
Let my sergeant get here, and we're going to discuss with him our plan of action.
The exigent circumstances doctrine allows members of law enforcement to seize property to prevent the destruction of evidence that may be contained within that property. For example, an officer may seize a cell phone to prevent the deletion of a photo on the phone. Officers are not allowed to search the property without a warrant, but they may hold the property until a warrant is approved or denied. The invoking of exigent circumstances may be challenged in court, but because Mr. Hakeem stated that he will only have to submit to a search warrant if the drone and phone are available, insinuating that he will not comply with the search warrant, it is likely that the deputies would be able to seize Mr. Hakeem's drone and phone so that the data is not deleted before they can acquire a search warrant. Whether or not the officers would be able to acquire a search warrant is unknown, but Mr. Hakeem's witty remarks may grant the deputies the authority to seize his property temporarily. As everyone waits for the sergeant, Deputy Galloway arrives on the scene and begins a dialogue with Mr. Hakeem.
What's your name, bud? I'm trying to find a resolution to this because we're dancing this.
My name is Rakeem.
What's that?
Rakeem.
Give me just a minute. We might be done here in a second, okay?
All right, Rakeem. To make sure I understand, I'm not trying to pray. I'm just trying to settle this yet and holler back.
All right.
All thing you're wanting us to do is basically leave. You're gonna go inside, take your drone inside, and.
I mean, I can't fly now, man, because you got too much rain. It wasn't raining that much earlier, so I can fly. I can't.
Yes or no, bud? I mean, is that all we're wanting at this point? I'm late to the party, but I have no. One thing I know.
The question you're asking is, am I heading in the house now that?
What's that?
The question you're asking is, am I heading into the house?
Yeah, that's all you're.
Yeah, I mean, I can't fly.
Right?
I can't fly the drone. Yeah, I mean, if it stops raining, I might come back out later.
Yeah. Okay.
But as I would do, I would fly over my property, which I was doing.
We have to understand where I'm standing, what I'm looking at. I'm looking at a gentleman standing in front of me with a rifle. And
yeah, I mean, is it against the law?
No, there's
right.
nothing. I'm just trying to ascertain what's actually going on.
Right.
See what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm not saying you did anything illegal. I'm not saying you done anything wrong. I'm just trying to figure out what we have actually going on.
Right. That's it. I mean, he come down Talking
Yeah,
about
we were
circumventing.
dealing with this shit at your neighbor's house.
Right. No, I'm
And
saying,
yes,
but
I
then
mean,
he
we
came
were
down
walking
like,
these yards with a flashlight, yeah.
yeah, he was like, man, if I land the drone and come up here. I said, I got an AR on me. I told him, you know, as he was up here, that I got an AR on me. So before you even come down here, you know I'm strapped, you know.
Okay.
So you won't have to worry about that.
I mean, that's your constitutional right. I'm not disputing that at all.
Right.
But you have to keep in mind this isn't something we see on a day-to-day basis.
I mean, you know, yeah, I understand. That's why we do that now, so that, you know, you all see this stuff and you see that, you know, there's people like me that, you know, that if I was a felon, I wouldn't have a gun, I wouldn't have bulletproof, you know, proof vest. So
Well, that's the hope anyway.
yeah,
Actually, I think, have you been living here for a while?
yeah.
You used to call us out.
Man, y'all come out here all the time, man, and help me, man. That's why I got the drone and the AR now, so that I don't have to call y'all so much. I'll just fly the drone over, see what's in front of my yard.
After finding common ground, Mr. Rakim and the Hall County Sheriff's deputies were able to agree to disagree and share a laugh before the deputies left the scene without further incident. Whether or not the deputies had reasonable suspicion to detain Mr. Rakim is highly subjective, and different courts would likely issue different outcomes if Mr. Rakim's detention was challenged. Mr. Rakim replied to a comment on the original video stating that he did not plan to file a complaint against the department, and that the officer had seen the error of his ways. Overall, the deputies of the Hall County Sheriff's Office get a B+, because although they may have overstepped their authority to some degree by detaining Mr. Rakim, it is likely that most courts would find their actions reasonable. Flying a drone near a police investigation at 1 a.m. while wearing a ballistic vest and an AR-15 rifle is not typical behavior, and it is likely that a court would find it reasonable for an officer to investigate. Whether or not it was reasonable to detain and identify Mr. Rakim is debatable, and it would be up to a court to decide. Ultimately, no one was arrested or cited, there was no use of force, and the officers responded reasonably to an armed citizen. Mr. Rakim also gets an A-, because although he willingly surrendered his name and date of birth, he remained calm throughout the interaction and was able to engage in a productive dialogue with the deputies and avoid being arrested or cited. Mr. Rakim was engaged in several activities which, considered individually, are completely legal, such as wearing a ballistic vest or carrying a firearm, but when combined with other activities, such as flying a drone, became suspicious and warranted investigation. Mr. Rakim's calm demeanor and compliance coasted him through this interaction, and while he may have sacrificed some measure of liberty while detained by the deputies, a peaceful compromise eventually was reached. I commend Mr. Rakim for his composure during this encounter. Let us know if there is an interaction or legal topic you would like us to cover in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more police interaction content.